Well, good evening. Thank you so much for coming. I think I know most of you, and I'm so thrilled to know most of you. I'm Susie Monaghan. I'm the Executive Director here at the Smith, and I want to welcome you tonight to our presentation of the results of our the year of 2023. Kind of strange to be focusing on 2023 when we're at the tail end of 24, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. We are so excited to be looking at this 130th birthday year to the Smith. So let's give the Smith a round of applause. Yep, just turned 130 a couple weeks ago, and we are going to be celebrating all year long, and you'll be hearing about that. But tonight, I want to introduce a very special Smith friend and supporter, and that is Mara O'Loughlin, who was, as many of you know, the longtime director of admissions at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. They snagged her after she decided that she was going to retire to move on into the capital campaign for the absolutely fabulous Gearin Center. And once she dusted that one off, checked that one off, she came on to the Smith board. And that was, we've been discussing it, but we think it was about 2013. Absolutely incredible at giving us advice and support, and heads up the membership and annual support committee of the board. So, Mara, please come up and introduce our featured speaker.
These lights are terribly bright, and then I just had cataract surgery. So, if you go through that, you know what I'm going through. But it is indeed my pleasure to introduce our speaker, State Senator Jeremy Cooney, representing New York's 56th district in Rochester. He has an impressive bio, which includes working with the legendary Congresswoman from Rochester, Louise Slaughter. He also was Chief of Staff of the Mayor of Rochester and worked with the Governor of Empire State Development. He was elected to the State Senate in 2020, the first Asian American to do so. He's written over 50 legislative bills, chairs the Transportation Committee and the Procurement Contracts Committee, and chairs the Subcommittee on Cannabis. In case anyone here has an interest in that, you might want to chat with him. You can read all about him on his website. There's little to no mention on his official bio of the early years. I'm here to fill in the blank. Jeremy, now I feel far less formal, first came to my attention when he applied to Hobart College. I was director of admissions, as Susie said, for Hobart and William Smith. I'd known his mother, actually, a William Smith alumna, when we were in college. He was a very strong applicant and very easy to admit. Jeremy turned out to be an outstanding member of the Hobart William Smith community. He graduated in 2004 with honors, having majored in public policy, with minors in both economics and philosophy. He studied abroad in Central Europe. A hint of things to come, he was elected president of the Hobart student government and was chosen as a druid, which is the highest honor a Hobart senior can achieve. Maybe there are 4, 5, 6 a year. He was one of them in his year. He was quite a leader even then, obviously. He continues to serve the college as a member of the Board of Trustees. But on the lighter side, he was a member of many organizations, including the a cappella singing group, the Hobart Tones. Jeremy, did you ever sing on such a grand stage? No? Well, you can now. Come on. How about a little walking in Memphis? I remember you doing that, right? No? You won't do it? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Jeremy Cooney.
Well, thank you, Mara, and I will spare you those Hobart Tone years and vocal board ranges. But I will share with you that now I always joke that I had an art scholarship to Hobart and William Smith, and now all I do is I sing for myself. So it's still working out. But I'm just delighted to be here with all of you and in such a special space. And delighted to see the continued relationship between my beloved alma mater and the Smith and their shared legacies of growth and history. I thought I would use my time here to share some thoughts on what's happening across New York State when it comes to historic theaters, investments in the performing arts, arts in general, what the changing time of administrations will mean for our work here in New York, and of course in upstate New York specifically. And then I think the opportunity for all of us not only to recognize and celebrate the 130th, but how do we share that positive message with others across New York State to ensure that we find those critical investments that the Smith and the other historic theaters continue to need. You know, like so many New Yorkers, we're faced with a level of uncertainty in this time. And we know that artistic expression is one of those ways to help us think about and navigate times of change and turbulence in our lives. It helps us make sense and process the change that we're experiencing and to share that experience with one another and our neighbors. And that's why it's so important to have spaces like the Smith and others across New York State allow for that type of expression and dialogue so that we can begin to work together on the issues that continue to face our various communities. And I want you to be assured that even though we're changing administrations in Washington, and there's a little bit of uncertainty about what that will mean and trickle down for states like New York, there is a very strong commitment from Albany, and certainly from those of us in state office, that we must make sure that we continue our obligations to the arts and making sure that New York remains a leader in finding spaces for artists to contribute back to our narrative as New Yorkers, but also to inspire that next generation of artists wherever they may call home. That's why I've been such a strong supporter of the Alive Downtowns Coalition program. And you may have seen some information outside about this Alive Downtowns initiative, and have been pleased to work with Susie and others to think about how do we take all of the good things that happen on this stage, and stages like the Auditorium Theater in Rochester, and stages across upstate New York, and instead of just telling them individually through their local representative, working together to kind of share this narrative of how historic theaters are integral to our economic development plans across these cities. Obviously, I don't need to tell you the role, the special role that Smith plays in downtown Geneva. But clearly, I think that there are lawmakers, especially our friends down in New York City and out in Long Island, who just aren't as familiar with how these theaters become more than just a gathering spot, but really are a part of our history, clearly, but part of our future in terms of helping to attract and retain workforce. Because these are an asset that are often not seen in other communities. And so when we talk about Geneva as a place where recent college graduates could perhaps stay and live and work, or attracting world-class faculty to come to Geneva, the Smith is a bright spot to be able to tell that story. And that really helps spur that economic development that we see and we need across upstate New York. And so we work together, all of these historic theaters, 13 theaters, coming together to be able to make a financial ask of New York State. And what we found, unsurprisingly, is that when we went as a coalition, and there were multiple state senators and assembly people who were able to get on board. By the way, this is one of those few wonderful examples of bipartisanship, because across upstate New York, we know that we have a Democratic majority, certainly in Albany, but in our cities and towns and villages and hamlets, there are people on both sides of the aisle who wanted to support their historic theater. And so we got letters together and made statements together in the state capitol. And it was a pretty, for all the things that we have to ask for in our state budget process, this was a grand slam. Fortunately, we had the leadership of Governor Kathy Hochul, who was familiar with a lot of these theaters, certainly Shays in Buffalo, which of course is in her backyard. But as Lieutenant Governor, then Kathy Hochul was going to all of these mid-sized and smaller cities across upstate New York, and she saw firsthand the role that these special places had. And so we had this unified ask for financial support, especially coming out of the pandemic. It was a very well-received proposition, and so we want to make sure that we continue to ask and work together to support the arts. I will share with you that the numbers, I think, speak for themselves. When you look collectively at the venues, these venues serve over 5 million people annually and contribute over $350 million to our local economies. So I think, again, if you just tell the Smith story, as wonderful as it is, we lose the economic impact of working together in a uniquely upstate cities proposition. I also want to share that as someone who did grow up in the arts, so I want to mention there was a member of the Hobart Tones, was also a member of the college's chorale. But my connection to the arts and performing arts started as a young chorister in Rochester, where I grew up. I attended the School of the Arts high school. And, that for me was a way to connect with my community and something that I've always found so interesting. And while I'm not going to sing Walking in Memphis tonight, again, to spare all of your ears, it is something that I carry with me today as a member of the Arts Caucus, but also as a member of the Arts Committee in the Senate. And by the way, the only upstate member of the Arts Committee on the Democratic board. We got to change that. We got to get more folks involved here. But I think I know firsthand, and my wife Diane, who's a member of the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra's board of directors, we know firsthand how important the arts are to growing the population and creating spaces that are attractive for people to live. Diane is a surgeon at the University of Rochester and came originally from Long Island. And she was attracted to the arts community in Rochester and ultimately made her decision to stay at the University of Rochester because of the strong commitment to the arts. And we live about 2 blocks from the Eastman School downtown, so we were able to walk into the performances. But that's the type of special relationship that Smith as a venue brings those world-class talents, thinkers, poets, and artists to be able to share that with the community. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to support that. I thought I would just wrap up and share just a personal reflection and memory of how Smith made an impact on me. It was mentioned that I was the leader of the Hobart Student Government, and that was way back in 2003. And at that time, the big band, the big musical group that we were excited about was Black Eyed Peas. I don't know how many of you remember the Black Eyed Peas, but I know they performed at the Super Bowl, and they were pretty big. And at that time, we were looking for a venue. The Guerin Center did not exist, unfortunately, yet. And we were looking for a venue. And someone said, "What about the Smith?" I said, "Oh yeah, the Smith is beautiful. That's perfect." And we were able to work with our faculty and staff, advisors, to help bring Fergie and the band mates here. And Will.i.am was right, and we had this entire place sold out and pumping, and it was great. It was such a prideful moment for our class in 2000. We graduated in 2004, but such a prideful moment for all of us to be downtown and to be celebrating with this artist. But the memory that sticks out to me is that we we are a historic theater, and there are historic dressing rooms here as well. And with my role as one of the student government leaders to help prepare the dressing room for and pick out glue and all the things that were in the writer. And this is before smartphones, and we didn't have that kind of camera culture back then. But she was very displeased when she had all of these curlers in her hair, and she had to walk out the side alleyway and walk up to the street, to Seneca Street, and come in a different door because there was no way to connect the spaces internally within the Smith. And she was just yelling at me for a good 5-6 minutes because there was a camera full. Someone had taken a picture of her curlers in her hair. I mean, she really would have hated the smartphone culture that has come around. But fortunately, that was good preparation in my college education and my undergraduate education to go work for politicians who would yell at me for much, much more fiercer concerns. So, fortunately, all's well and ended well. She performed on the stage here. It was a wonderful moment for myself and all of my classmates. But I'm just so grateful for such a special space and for all of the work that you do to preserve this historic theater. And please know that we've got an advocate in me and my colleagues in upstate New York to make sure that we invest appropriately, but also that we support programmatically the artists who will take advantage of this global outstanding. So thank you for having me here tonight and continue the good work. God bless.
Thank you so much, Senator Cooney, for that really inspiring talk, and for the walk down memory lane, talking about Fergie and the Black Eyed Peas. I graduated in 2006, so I'm very familiar with that. But thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to help us preserve this historic leader and to preserve the kind of electric energy that comes from live performance. So it's meant so much to us. My name is Becky Burdett, and I'm the co-chair with Kelby Russell of the board of the Smith. It's great to see all of you here tonight. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evenings to be here with us. I'm really looking forward to kind of telling you all of the things that we've been up to, both on stage and behind the scenes in 2023. I'd like to first take a moment to recognize our fabulous board of directors. I'd like to introduce them all individually to you. Oh, this went better in rehearsal. Sorry. So first, Vinnie Alaperti, Annie Bickens, Martha Vaughn, Carol Payne, Sim Covington, Rob Flowers, Chanel France, Karen Goulet, Joan Grela, Stephanie Hessler, Nancy McDermott, Jennifer Menges, Mara O'Loughlin, Paul Parato, Kelby Russell, Tony Shelton, Sarah Tuttle, Ford Weiskittle, and Mitch Wilbur. Thank you all so much for your service. And we'd also like to acknowledge all of the hard work of the many volunteers who serve on board committees that are not officially a part of the board. Thank you so much for the work that you do. We wouldn't be able to do all of this good work without your help, so thank you. '23 was an exciting and productive year for the Smith, with lots of new developments. We continued the very important strategic planning work that we had begun in the previous year. First, by setting a goal of maximizing fundraising, and next, by hiring a fundraising consultant to help us draft a plan for moving forward. From this plan, we created a new staff position entirely devoted to directing our fundraising. The Smith also made some important capital investments. With the help of the New York State Council for the Arts, or NYSCA, the Wyckoff Family Foundation, and the Emerson Foundation, we put a new roof on our beloved courthouse. Work continued also on the New York Main Street project that refreshed our third floor rental properties and brought our number of ADA accessible seats from 8 to 24. Each year, we also invest in our communications infrastructure in order to stay in step with the expectations of 21st century audiences. NYSCA also provided funding for us to begin the process of revamping our website. That's recently been unveiled, so we're very proud to be able to present that now. So now I'll turn it over to Executive Director Susie Madigan, who will speak about the economics of it all.
Okay, I'm back. So I'm picking up on Jeremy's message of economic development of theaters in various cities across upstate. I wanted to give this profile of the direct impact that the Smith has on Geneva. And this is the Arts and Economic Prosperity Economic Impact Calculator, number 4, and it comes from Americans for the Arts, which is a national lobbying group. And all you do right here is plug in the size of the population, which we are under 50,000, the number of admissions, people who walk through the door in a given year, and then the annual budget of the organization. And this calculator spits out the full-time equivalent jobs that economic impact would create and the tax revenues. So those are listed along the bottom. So not too shabby. And I think you'll agree that it's pretty surprising that, that much result can come from what happens in this building. And I think it's great for all of us to go out and share that news with everyone who we think needs to hear. And folks who may not, it's not their thing to come and support the arts, but it is their thing to support their downtown and make sure that it's economically strong. So we know that the Smith is an attractor to Geneva from folks who are, as far as, recently at the Cowboy Junkie show, I talked to people who had driven 4 hours to come see the show from Western Massachusetts. That's kind of crazy, but we're certainly drawing from an hour and a half away. And attracting people to the Smith and to our downtown, filling restaurants, hotels, and shops. And I just wanted to share that the type of show may not be completely obvious, the ones that have the greatest impact. And for example, you think of the typical sold-out one-night show, that's going to have the biggest impact. But it's actually the dance competitions when we have hundreds of kids here, but they're here from 7 in the morning until literally 10 at night. And they are eating all of their meals here. They are spending the night here. They are, they're just here. They're living in this building. And Dave, our custodian, can tell you that the trash cans are very full. But, they're really, an event like that can have just as much impact, and we're happy to rent the place to those folks and have them see our spectacular space. So,